I was 62, a widow, and alone, until one night, the flames that destroyed my home led me straight back to the love I'd been waiting for my entire life. When my house burned down, I lost 40 years of my life in one afternoon. But that fire didn't just end something, it began something. I thought I understood loss, until the day the fire took everything. My home, my memories, my peace. But what I didn't know was that from the ashes of that fire, life would give me something I thought I'd lost forever, my first love. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories reach. Today's story is about second chances, family betrayal, and finding love when you least expect it. My name is Elena Martinez, and at 62 years old, I thought I understood what loss meant. I'd buried my husband 5 years earlier, watched my son grow distant, and learned to live with the quiet loneliness that comes with being a widow. But I was wrong about understanding loss. I had no idea how much further I could fall. It was a Thursday afternoon in Austin, Texas, the kind of perfect autumn day that makes you grateful to be alive. I was in my study grading papers. I'd taught high school English for 30 years before retiring, and I still tutored students online to keep my mind sharp and my bank account stable. The afternoon sun filtered through my cream-colored curtains, casting warm golden light across the oak desk my late husband Marco had built for me decades ago. I remember thinking how peaceful everything felt, how content I was in that moment. Then I heard the pop. It came from downstairs, sharp and electrical, like a firecracker going off inside the walls. The sound was followed by a sizzling noise that made every hair on my body stand up. Something was very, very wrong. I pushed back from my desk, my heart already racing, and ran to the hallway. That's when I saw the smoke. It was curling up the staircase like ghostly fingers reaching for me, thick and gray and moving fast. Too fast. I could smell it now, acrid, chemical, terrifying. The smell of everything I owned beginning to burn. I ran down the stairs, my hand on the railing, and made it halfway before the heat hit me like a physical wall. My living room was already engulfed. Flames crawled across the ceiling in bright orange waves, spreading with a speed that seemed impossible. They consumed my grandmother's antique curtains, raced up the walls, and began eating through the wooden beams that had held this house together for 50 years. Later, the fire captain would tell me it was the old aluminum wiring in the walls, a known fire hazard in houses built in the 1970s. One spark from a short circuit, and the fire spread through the walls faster than anyone could stop it. But in that moment, I didn't know any of this. All I knew was that I had maybe 2 minutes to get out alive. I ran to the kitchen, my lungs already burning from the smoke. I grabbed my purse from the counter, thank God it was right there, and my phone from where it was charging by the coffee maker. That was it. That was all I could save. Behind me, I heard glass exploding as the heat shattered the living room windows. The fire roared louder, feeding on the fresh oxygen, and I knew I was out of time. I burst through the back door into my garden, gasping and coughing, my eyes streaming with tears from the smoke. Mr. Chen, my elderly neighbor, was already in his yard, his phone pressed to his ear. He saw me stumble out and ran over, wrapping his arms around me as we both turned to watch my house being devoured by flames that seemed hungry, almost alive. I called 911, he said, his voice shaking. Elena, thank God you got out. Thank God. The firefighters arrived within 12 minutes that felt like 12 hours. They worked with incredible speed and efficiency, their hoses shooting powerful streams of water at the flames. But even I could see it was too late. The fire had too much of a head start. By the time they got it under control, my house was nothing but a blackened, smoking skeleton. The fire captain approached me where I stood wrapped in a blanket someone had draped over my shoulders. His face was covered in soot, and his eyes held a sympathy that made my stomach turn. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said gently. "We did everything we could, but it's a complete loss. The structure is too damaged to save. You won't be able to go back in, it's not safe." A complete loss. Those words echoed in my head as I stared at the ruins. 40 years of memories. The house where Marco and I had raised our son Tyler. The kitchen where we'd celebrated every birthday and holiday. The bedroom where I'd held Marco's hand as cancer slowly stole him from me. The photo albums documenting Tyler's entire childhood, his first steps, his first day of school, his graduation. My grandmother's handmade quilts. Marco's collection of vintage books. The jewelry he'd given me over our 37 years together. All of it gone. Reduced to ash and twisted metal and charred wood. That night, Mr. Chen and his wife Linda insisted I stay with them. They gave me their daughter's old room, brought me tea and toast I couldn't eat, and tried their best to comfort me. But their apartment was tiny, barely big enough for the two of them, and I could see the strain on their faces. They were good people, generous people, but they didn't have the space or resources for a long-term houseguest. I knew I needed to call my son. Tyler lived in Westlake Hills, one of Austin's wealthiest neighborhoods, about 30 minutes away in a house that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. He was 37, a tech consultant who'd made a fortune during the startup boom, advising companies on digital transformation and charging rates that seemed obscene to a retired teacher like me. We'd been distant for years, not hostile exactly, just disconnected in the way families sometimes drift when life gets busy and priorities shift. I borrowed Linda's phone since mine had died and I had no way to charge it. "Mom?" Tyler's voice was cautious when he answered. We didn't usually call each other without scheduling it first, without a reason. "What's wrong? Why are you calling from this number?" "The house burned down, honey." My voice cracked on the words. "Everything's gone." "I'm okay, I'm not hurt, but I need somewhere to stay while I figure things out. Just temporarily, until the insurance money comes through." The silence on the other end of the line stretched too long. I could hear him breathing, could almost hear him thinking, calculating. "Jesus, Mom. The whole house? Are you sure you're not hurt?" "I'm fine, just shaken up." "Tyler, can I come stay with you?" "I promise I won't be in the way. I just need a place to sleep while I sort out the insurance claim and find somewhere permanent." Another pause. This one longer, more uncomfortable. "Let me talk to Sienna and call you back, okay? Give me an hour." Sienna. His girlfriend of 18 months. A 29-year-old lifestyle influencer with 400,000 Instagram followers who documented every perfectly curated moment of her perfectly curated life. I'd met her exactly twice, once at a stiff, awkward dinner where she spent more time photographing her food than eating it, and once at Tyler's birthday party where she'd quietly suggested I might want to update my look if I was going to appear in any of her photos. Tyler called back 53 minutes later. I'd been watching the clock, my anxiety building with each passing minute. "Mom, here's the thing," he began, and I knew from his tone that what came next would break my heart. "Sienna and I are in a really crucial phase of our relationship right now. We're working with a couples therapist on communication and boundaries, and she specifically said that having houseguests right now would disrupt our progress. It could set us back months." I felt something crack deep inside my chest, a fissure that spread like the fire that had consumed my home. "I'm not a houseguest, Tyler. I'm your mother. My house just burned down. I have nowhere to go. I know, Mom, and I want to help. I really do. I'll send you money for a hotel while you sort out the insurance situation. There's a nice extended stay near the Domain. Really clean, safe neighborhood. I'll cover 2 weeks, maybe 3 if you need it. 2 weeks. My son, who spent more on a single dinner than I used to spend on a week's worth of groceries, was offering me 2 weeks in a hotel. Your father would be ashamed of you right now, I said quietly. Marco would be absolutely ashamed. That's not fair, Mom. I'm trying to be supportive while also maintaining healthy boundaries in my relationship. Don't bother with the hotel, I interrupted. I'll figure it out myself. I hung up before he could respond, before the tears could come, before I had to hear him explain again why his girlfriend's therapy sessions were more important than his homeless mother. The hotel Tyler suggested, the nice one near the Domain, cost $89 a night. At that rate, my savings would be gone in 2 weeks. I found a cheaper place off the highway, a run-down building with a flickering vacancy sign and the kind of worn carpet that made you want to keep your shoes on. It cost $45 a night, and it was all I could afford while waiting for the insurance company to process my claim. The insurance adjuster came 3 days after the fire. He was a young man with a clipboard and a camera who walked through the ruins of my life with the detached efficiency of someone who did this every day. He took photos, made notes, asked questions about the age of my appliances and when I'd last updated the wiring. Total loss, he confirmed, as if I couldn't see that for myself. With the age of the structure and your deductible, you're looking at maybe $85,000 after everything is processed. It'll take 6 to 8 weeks, maybe longer if there are complications. $85,000 to replace 40 years of life. It seemed impossible, insulting. But I signed the forms and watched him leave, knowing that money was months away and I needed a solution now. On my 3rd night in that terrible hotel, lying on a mattress that felt like sleeping on cardboard boxes, I couldn't sleep. The room was too cold, the heater rattled, and the people in the next room were having a screaming argument that reminded me how far I'd fallen. I turned on the lamp and opened my purse, thinking I'd count what was left of my cash. That's when I saw the photograph. It was tucked behind my expired Costco membership card, faded and soft from age. Adrian Castellanos and me at Zilker Park in the summer of 1984. We were sitting on a blanket under the oak trees, his arm around my shoulders, both of us sunburned and smiling like we knew secrets the rest of the world hadn't learned yet. I was 22, wearing cut-off shorts and a tank top, my dark hair long and wild. He was 24, lean and tan, with eyes that looked almost black in the photograph. Adrian had been a carpenter's apprentice back then, working for his uncle's custom furniture business. But he had dreams that were bigger than Austin, bigger than building cabinets and repairing chairs. He wanted to create art, to design furniture that would be in museums and luxury homes, to build something that mattered. I'm going to make it, Elena, he'd told me the night before he left for an apprenticeship in Santa Fe. We were in his truck at the overlook on Mount Bonnell, watching the city lights sparkle below us. I'm going to become someone worthy of you. Someone who can give you everything you deserve. Wait for me. I'll come back when I've made something of myself. I promised I would wait. I meant it with every fiber of my 22-year-old heart. But 6 months became a year. His letters grew less frequent, more focused on his work and less on us. When I met Marco at a friend's wedding, steady, reliable Marco with his accounting degree and his sensible 5-year plan, I convinced myself that practical love was better than passionate waiting. Marco was good to me. He was a good husband, a good father, a good man. I didn't regret marrying him, not really. But I'd kept this photograph for 40 years, hidden in my wallet where Marco never found it, because some part of me had never quite let Adrian go. Over the years, I'd heard things through mutual friends who still lived in Austin. Adrian had made it, just like he said he would. His custom furniture company, Castellanos Design, had exploded across the Southwest. He'd expanded into commercial work, designing restaurant interiors and hotel lobbies. His pieces sold for tens of thousands of dollars. The last I'd heard, about 5 years ago, he'd opened a flagship showroom in Dallas and had become a millionaire several times over. What would a millionaire furniture designer want with a 62-year-old retired teacher living in a $45 a night motel? But at 2:47 in the morning, desperate and alone and running out of options, pride seemed less important than survival. I found his company website on my phone. Castellanos Design. The logo was sleek and modern, the website showcasing furniture so beautiful it looked like sculpture. There was a contact number at the bottom. It probably routed through a receptionist or an assistant, someone who would politely tell me that Mr. Castellanos was too busy to take calls from random women claiming to have dated him 40 years ago. I stared at that number for 23 minutes, my thumb hovering over the screen, before I finally pressed call. It rang 4 times. I was about to hang up, relief and disappointment mixing in equal measure, when someone answered. Castellanos Design. This is Adrian speaking. His voice hit me like a physical force. After 40 years, I knew it instantly, deeper now, seasoned by time and success, but unmistakably his. Adrian? My voice came out barely above a whisper. It's Elena. Elena Torres. Well, I'm Elena Reyes now, but I used to be Torres, and we dated, back in Austin, in the 80s. Elena. He said my name like a prayer, like a drowning man gasping for air. My God. Elena? The words tumbled out before I could stop them, before I could think about how pathetic I sounded. I'm so sorry to call like this. I know it's been forever, and this is completely crazy, but my house burned down last week, and I lost everything, and my son doesn't want me staying with him, and I didn't know who else to call. I found your number, and I thought maybe. Where are you? His voice cut through my rambling, sharp and urgent. Elena, where are you right now? What city? Austin. I'm in Austin, at a hotel off Highway 183. Stay there. Don't move. I'm in Dallas, but I'm getting in my car right now. I'll be there in 3 hours. Do you understand me? Stay exactly where you are. Adrian, you don't have to do that. I just needed to hear a friendly voice. I shouldn't have called. 3 hours, Elena. I'm already walking to my car. I'll call you when I'm close. He hung up, and I sat in that terrible motel room, shaking, wondering what I'd just set in motion. He arrived at 5:47 a.m., just as the sun was beginning to paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I'd been watching from the window for the past hour, unable to sleep, unable to believe he was really coming. When the black Range Rover pulled into the parking lot, sleek and expensive and completely out of place among the rusted sedans and pickup trucks, my heart began to race. Adrian stepped out of the car, and time collapsed. He was 64 now, his dark hair gone silver at the temples, his frame broader and more solid than the lean young carpenter I'd known. He wore expensive dark jeans, a charcoal cashmere sweater, and leather boots that probably cost more than a month of my Social Security. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd achieved everything he set out to do and had nothing left to prove. But his eyes, those deep brown eyes that used to make me forget my own name, were exactly the same. I grabbed my small duffel bag, everything I owned in the world, and walked out to meet him. For a long moment, we just stood there in that shabby parking lot, 40 years of separation dissolving like morning fog. "You're even more beautiful than I remembered," he said softly, his voice rough with emotion. That's when I started crying. Right there in that terrible parking lot with the sun coming up and the highway traffic building, I completely fell apart. 40 years of holding it together, of being strong, of surviving loss after loss, it all came pouring out in ugly, gasping sobs that I couldn't control. Adrian caught me as I crumpled, his arms strong and steady around me, and I cried into his expensive sweater while he held me and whispered into my hair. "I've got you," he murmured. "Elena, I've got you. You're safe now. I promise you're safe." We stood like that until my tears subsided, until I could breathe again, until the world stopped spinning quite so fast. "Let's get you out of here," he said gently, taking my duffel bag like it contained treasure instead of 3 days' worth of Target clearance clothing. The drive to Dallas was quiet at first. Adrian didn't push me to talk, just kept one hand on the steering wheel and occasionally reached over to squeeze my hand with the other. His Range Rover was luxurious in a way I'd never experienced, leather seats that felt like butter, a sound system that made the classical music he played sound like a live orchestra, climate control that kept me perfectly comfortable. We stopped for breakfast at a small diner off I-35, and over coffee and pancakes that I could barely eat, I told him everything. The fire and how fast it had consumed my home. The insurance adjuster's cold assessment. Tyler's rejection and Sienna's therapeutic boundaries. The lonely years after Marco died, teaching myself to live alone, to cook for one, to fill the silence with audiobooks and television because the quiet was too heavy to bear. Adrian listened to it all, his jaw growing tighter with each detail, his hands clenched around his coffee mug. "Your son is an idiot," he said finally, his voice hard. "And I'm sorry about your husband. Truly. I heard you'd married, and I hoped he was good to you." "He was," I said honestly. "Marco was a good man. A good husband. He gave me stability and a family and a life I'm grateful for." "But Adrian." I looked up at him, this man I'd never quite forgotten. "He wasn't you." Adrian's expression softened. He reached across the table and took my hand in both of his. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said quietly. "Not once in 40 years. Every piece of furniture I designed, every success I achieved, every dollar I made, it was all so I could be worthy of you when you came back to me. I was married, Adrian. I had a husband, a son. I know. And I respected that. I never tried to contact you, never interfered. But I never stopped loving you either. Some loves don't die just because time passes." Adrian's home was in North Dallas, hidden behind stone walls and iron gates in a neighborhood where the houses looked like small estates. When we pulled through his private driveway, lined with mature oak trees and landscaped gardens, I felt like I was entering a different world. His house was stunning, modern architecture with clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, and natural materials that made it feel connected to the landscape. Inside was even more beautiful. Custom furniture that looked like art, high ceilings with exposed wooden beams, a kitchen that belonged in a magazine. "The guest suite is down this hall," he said, carrying my pathetic duffel bag like it was made of spun gold. "But honestly, Elena, I have 6 bedrooms. Take your pick. Stay as long as you want. Stay forever if you'll have me." I turned to look at him, this successful, handsome man who was offering me everything I'd lost and more. "We haven't seen each other in 40 years, I said weakly. "We don't even really know each other anymore." He set down my bag and took both my hands in his. I know that you kept my photograph in your wallet for 40 years, he said. I know that you called me when you had nowhere else to go. I know that when I saw you in that parking lot, it felt like coming home. That's enough for me. The rest we can figure out together. Living with Adrian was like discovering a part of myself I'd forgotten existed. The first few weeks were strange. Two people learning to orbit each other again after decades apart. But slowly, carefully, we found our rhythm. I started cooking, something I'd always loved but had stopped enjoying after Marco died. There's no joy in cooking for one person, no point in making elaborate meals when you're eating alone in front of the television. But cooking for Adrian brought that joy back. He'd come into the kitchen while I worked, asking questions about recipes, telling me about his day, making me laugh with stories about difficult clients and design disasters. You've spoiled me, he said one evening, savoring the chicken mole I'd made using my grandmother's recipe. I've been eating restaurant food and takeout for years. I forgot what real cooking tastes like. We took walks in the evenings through his neighborhood, exploring the trails that wound through the wooded areas. We talked endlessly, filling in 40 years of gaps. He told me about building his business from nothing, about the failed relationships and lonely nights, about the success that never quite felt complete because he was achieving it alone. I dated a lot over the years, he admitted one night as we sat on his back patio with wine and the stars overhead. Smart women, beautiful women, successful women. I even got engaged once, about 10 years ago. Valentina. She was an architect, brilliant, gorgeous, perfect on paper. I felt a sharp stab of jealousy that surprised me with its intensity. What happened? The night before the wedding, I was in my closet getting my tux ready, and all I could think about was you. He turned to look at me, his eyes serious in the dim light. About the girl in the Zilker Park photo. About promises I'd made and roads I hadn't taken. I realized I was about to marry someone while being completely in love with someone else. So I called it off. Adrian, I breathed. You canceled your wedding because of me? Because of a memory? No, he said firmly. I canceled it because some part of me always knew you'd come back. That life would give us a second chance. I just had to be patient enough to wait for it. Tyler called 6 weeks after I moved in with Adrian. I was in the garden, helping Adrian plant roses, when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. Mom, I've been trying to reach you for days. Where are you? Are you okay? I'm fine, Tyler. Better than fine, actually. I looked up the extended stay. They said you never checked in. Mom, where are you staying? I've been worried. I looked back at Adrian's beautiful house, at the life I was building in its rooms and gardens. I'm staying with a friend. An old friend. What friend? Mom, you need to be careful. There are people who prey on vulnerable older women. You can't just move in with strangers. His name is Adrian Castellanos, I interrupted. We dated before I met your father. And Tyler, he's been kinder to me in 6 weeks than you were when I needed you most. Silence. Then, Castellanos? The furniture designer? Mom, is this some kind of rebound thing? You just lost your house. If this is you trying to apologize, you're doing a terrible job, I said coldly. If you're calling because you heard I'm staying with someone successful and now you're suddenly interested in my well-being, you can save your breath. That's not fair. Sienna and I have been talking, and we think maybe we overreacted. You could come stay with us for a while. We'd make room. No, thank you. I'm exactly where I want to be. Mom, I'm trying to make this right. You know what Adrian told me yesterday? I said. He told me I light up every room I walk into. That hearing my voice first thing in the morning is his favorite part of the day. That I make his house feel like a home for the first time since he built it. When was the last time you made me feel like anything other than an inconvenient obligation? I hung up before he could answer, before guilt could make me softer than I wanted to be. Adrian and I got married on a Tuesday in February, 4 months after that phone call from the motel. We didn't make a big announcement or send out invitations. It was just us, his business partner James as a witness, and the officiant in Adrian's living room with winter sunlight streaming through those beautiful windows. I wore a coral dress that Adrian had bought for me, claiming it matched my smile. He wore a navy suit that made him look distinguished and devastatingly handsome. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, promising to spend whatever time we had left making up for the 40 years we'd lost, promising to love each other with the wisdom of age and the passion of youth. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Adrian kissed me like we were 22 and 24 again, like we had all the time in the world ahead of us. Tyler came to visit a month after the wedding. Adrian answered the door, protective, wary, but gracious enough to invite him in. My son stood in the entryway of this beautiful house, taking in the custom furniture and the original art on the walls and the obvious signs of wealth and success, and I saw the exact moment he realized what his rejection had cost him. Mom, he said, and his voice cracked slightly. You look amazing. You look happy. I am happy, I told him simply. For the first time in a very long time, I'm genuinely, completely happy. We sat in the garden with coffee, and Tyler apologized. Really apologized, not the surface level sorry that's really about making yourself feel better, but the deep kind that comes from genuine regret and recognition of harm caused. I was selfish, he said, not looking at me. Sienna was in my ear about boundaries and space, and I let her convince me that my comfort was more important than my mother who'd just lost everything. Dad would be ashamed of me. I'm ashamed of me. I forgave him, because he's my son and because holding on to anger would only poison my happiness. But I also made it clear that our relationship would be different now, that he'd have to earn his way back to the closeness we'd once had. And Sienna? I asked. How does she feel about all this? Tyler looked uncomfortable. We broke up. Turns out when I started questioning her advice about you, she didn't appreciate it. Said I was backsliding on my growth. He shook his head. I realize now that she was the one who needed to grow up. This morning, I woke up in Adrian's arms, my husband's arms, in the bedroom we've made ours, decorated with photographs of us then and now, filled with furniture he designed specifically for us. The morning light filtered through the windows overlooking the garden we've been cultivating together, and I could smell the coffee Adrian makes every morning before I wake up. At 62, I'm happier than I ever imagined possible. Not because of Adrian's money or his beautiful house or his success, though I won't lie and say those things don't make life easier. I'm happy because someone sees me, truly sees me, all of me, the young girl I was and the older woman I've become, and chooses to love what he sees. The fire took my old life. It consumed everything I owned and forced me to rebuild from ash. But sometimes destruction is just another word for transformation. Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you wanted to find everything you truly needed. And sometimes, if you're incredibly, impossibly lucky, first love gets a second chance to become forever love. That photograph from Zilker Park sits on Adrian's desk now, in a custom frame he made himself from reclaimed oak. Next to it is a newer photograph, us on our wedding day, older and grayer and scarred by life, but smiling with the same joy we had at 22 and 24. Some promises take 40 years to keep. But they're worth the wait. So what did you think of Elena and Adrian's story? Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I love hearing from viewers all around the world. If you enjoyed this story and want to support the channel, you can hit that super thanks button. It really helps me continue creating content like this. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. I've got more incredible real-life stories coming your way. See you in the next one.